Selena Orvio had never expected her evening rounds at HFY Medical Research Center to involve a near-dead alien. The halls were brightly lit in the signature blue-white glow that eliminated every hint of shadow, reflecting off the transparent domed ceilings and creating an almost surreal atmosphere. She glided along the polished floor, her dark violet coat swirling behind her, as staff members bowed slightly to greet her. In her 30 years of practice, she had seen all manner of injuries: radiation burns from reactor malfunctions, decompression effect from ruptured shuttle pods, and rare diseases transmitted through uncharted planets. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the moment the emergency drone floated up to her with an urgent ping, announcing that a foreign vessel had crashed near the capital and that its single occupant was severely wounded. She hurried to the triage bay. The automatic doors slid open to reveal a flurry of medical staff bustling around a figure on a gurney. The figure's skin was pale, almost colorless compared to the deep green or vibrant magenta tones typical of HFY's humanoid forms. Selena's first thought was that it had to be some mutated version of a known species, perhaps an offshoot from the Caltier system. But as she drew closer, her eyes fell on thick, red blood pooling on the floor. It was shocking to see any color but the standard teal or bright purple that she knew so well. The sheer redness seemed unnatural in this place. Her staff parted to let her through. The creature on the gurney, male, she guessed from the bone structure, breathed in ragged gasps. Chunks of metal and polymer from what was presumably a spacecraft were embedded in his torso. She noticed that the being's hair was a sandy brown and cropped short, and his clothes, though tattered, appeared to be made from advanced materials reminiscent of standard-issue flight suits. Strangest of all was the faint rise and fall of his chest. Given the severity of the visible injuries, he should have been dead already. One of her junior doctors, Feiner, stood by with a data slate in hand, scanning him with diagnostic drones. Selena glanced at the monitors. The readouts were wild, systolic pressure dropping and then spiking, oxygen saturation all over the place, and yet there was a bizarre resilience in the tissues. She reached down to touch a particularly gruesome wound on his abdomen. The edges were ragged and scorched, indicating a possible energy weapon. It was nothing new to see a burn from a plasma rifle, but the amount of blood lost should have ended his life long before he reached them. "Doctor, he's losing consciousness again," Feiner said. His tone was clipped, but Selena sensed the urgency beneath his professionalism. "We've never seen anything like this. We're not sure which sedatives are safe to administer." "Get me the prototype universal analgesic we've been testing," Selena ordered, pressing her hands to the man's chest to check for a heartbeat. There was a faint, unsteady pulse. "And prepare the operating chamber. I'll handle the procedure myself. We can't afford to wait." In the blink of an eye, the gurney was on the move. Selena guided it down a narrow corridor to a sealed door that slid open with a hiss, revealing a pristine surgical room outfitted with the latest in robotic arms and scanning drones. Harsh overhead lights cast an intense glow on every metallic surface, highlighting every drop of red blood trailing behind them. Automated equipment clamped around the patient's limbs to keep him still. The universal analgesic was administered slowly, with the medical drones monitoring for any adverse reaction. Selena hardly dared to breathe, half expecting the patient to flatline. Instead, his ragged respiration steadied, though his vitals remained perilously low. She snapped on sterile gloves, and the mechanical arms were positioning themselves in place. The first challenge was to remove the fragments of metal plating lodged in his abdomen. That alone took the better part of an hour. The drones beeped incessantly, warning that his blood pressure was dangerously unstable. Each time Selena extracted a shard, fresh red blood spurted onto the surgical cloths. But something miraculous was happening. Even as she worked, the edges of the wounds showed signs of partial clotting that was faster than she would have believed possible. She had no illusions. It was not instant regeneration, but it was rapid enough to suggest that his species possessed some extraordinary healing capability. Feiner watched from a platform above, transfixed by the scene. The usual protocol for an unidentified species would be to report directly to the authorities for a thorough security check before any operation. But Selena was a leading specialist in xenobiology, and the hospital staff trusted her judgment implicitly. She refused to let a living being die on her table simply because of bureaucratic formalities. By the time she closed the deep laceration and transferred him to an ICU bed, for tense hours had passed. Selena peeled off her gloves, her breathing as labored as though she had run a marathon. One of the monitoring drones displayed a close-up of the patient's face. Pale skin, hair stuck to the temples with sweat, shallow breaths, and a faint flicker of movement behind the eyelids. He was still very much alive. Finer approached cautiously, offering Selena a sterile cloth to wipe her forehead. "You saved him, doctor," he said quietly. She eyed the man on the bed, uncertain. "We've stabilized him. Whether he survives is up to him now." Despite her words of caution, a ripple of hope coursed through her. Something about the man's physiology had allowed him to cling to life far beyond normal limits. She felt a surge of professional curiosity, followed immediately by an even deeper sense of ethical responsibility to protect him. An alarm sounded in the hallway, low-pitched and insistent. Selena tensed. She recognized that alarm. It was the one that indicated a high-level government official had arrived unannounced. As if on cue, the door slid open to reveal a tall figure with metallic insignia on his dark uniform. Corvin, a general within the Alverii Defense Bureau, strode in. His deep-set eyes scanned the room, lingering on the unconscious patient and the bright red stains on the surgical sheets. Selena immediately stepped forward, trying not to appear defiant. "General Corvin, we weren't expecting a visit." He clasped his hands behind his back. Word travels quickly when an unidentified craft crashes on the outskirts of our capital. "I came to see the occupant myself. Is it still alive?" She glanced at the bed. "Yes, but we know nothing yet about his species or intentions. We're gathering medical data to ensure his survival." Corvin's face was unreadable, but something in his posture spoke of keen interest. "The Bureau wants full reports on every test you perform. This case might be of immense importance to planetary security. If this being poses a threat, we will not hesitate to intervene." With that, he turned and left, leaving the air thick with tension. Selena exhaled slowly, understanding the unspoken warning. The memory of the man's battered body flashed through her mind. He was a pilot, apparently. Possibly a soldier. Someone had shot him down, or he had stumbled into a battle. If the government had any suspicion that he was dangerous, they might detain him in a top-secret facility with little regard for his rights or well-being. She prayed silently that he would recover enough to speak for himself and shed light on whatever had happened. Over the next day, Selena remained close to his bedside, observing the mysterious healing process. While the man lay unconscious, intravenous lines delivered carefully balanced fluids and nutrients. The drones mapped out scans of his internal organs, and the more data Selena gathered, the more baffled she became. His body temperature ran slightly warmer than an Alverei's, which might speed up cellular processes. His white blood cells appeared to mobilize faster. His bone marrow was incredibly robust, pumping out new cells at an accelerated rate. Injuries that would debilitate an Alverii for weeks were gradually knitting together. She often spoke to him even though he lay motionless. "What kind of world do you come from?" she would murmur, adjusting a sensor on his forehead. "Is your entire species this resilient, or are you special?" The man never replied, but she felt an odd comfort in voicing her questions out loud. Late in the evening of the second day, her silent patient opened his eyes. Selena was checking his vitals when she noticed his eyelids flutter. A soft groan escaped his lips, followed by coughing. He tried to sit up, and she gently helped him raise his torso. For a moment, he blinked in confusion at the bright lights overhead. Where am I?" His voice was coarse, his accent unfamiliar, but clear enough once processed by the auto-translator embedded in the medical systems. "You're in a Alverii Medical Research Center," Selena answered carefully. "We found you severely injured." I performed surgery to save your life. He swallowed, gazing at her with dazed curiosity. HFY? I've never heard of it. Then he noticed the different hue of her skin and the shimmering pattern that ran along her temples. He didn't recoil, merely stared. Guess I'm not on any charted planet for my side, then. She managed a reassuring smile. It's fortunate you made it here, or you wouldn't be alive. I'm Dr. Selena Orvio. Leo Hayes, he replied, pressing a hand gingerly against a bandaged area on his abdomen. He flinched at the pain, but looked surprised. I shouldn't be alive. My ship got attacked. Attacked by whom? She asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. If it was a recognized enemy of HFY, the political complications could be enormous. He grimaced as he tried to recall. Pirates, maybe. I'm a scout pilot for the Earth Fleet. We were traveling through unclaimed sectors when we got ambushed. I lost them in an asteroid field, but my ship was hit. I jumped into FTL randomly, hoping to land somewhere with medical facilities. Next thing I knew, I was crashing. Selena recognized a few words, Earth, FTL, but the rest was a swirl of confusion. She turned to the medical drone. We need to keep you here for further treatment. Your injuries are significant, even if your body is healing quickly. Do you remember anything else? His gaze swept around the room, noticing the advanced equipment and the strangely shaped drones. I remember calling for help before I lost consciousness. Thank you for saving me, Doctor. Then his face hardened slightly. I need to contact my fleet. They'll think I'm dead. Selena hesitated. The mention of contacting his people flashed warning signals in her mind. If the HFY government discovered that an off-world soldier was trying to bring in reinforcements, they might respond aggressively. Yet morally, she couldn't deny him the right to communicate with his own people. She patted his shoulder gently. Rest for now. We'll see what we can do. During the subsequent hours, Selena slipped into her analytical mode. She spent much of her shift running tests on Leo's blood. The results made her heart hammer with excitement and worry. His immune system was hyper-efficient, with specialized proteins that accelerated recovery from trauma. She recognized the potential benefits for her own species, treatments for degenerative diseases, new forms of organ regeneration. At the same time, the notion that the government might attempt to exploit him was ever present. Eventually, she stepped out into a dim corridor to gather her thoughts. Feiner approached with a solemn expression. Doctor, I've heard rumors. The Defense Bureau is sending an official order for immediate transfer of your patient to their facility. Apparently, they see him as a possible threat or a unique biological asset. They want to run their own tests. Selena felt an instant jolt of anger. He's my patient, and he's done nothing wrong. You know what will happen if they take him. The Bureau is notorious for employing any means necessary under the banner of security. Her fingers clenched into fists. I can't let that happen. Feiner shifted uncomfortably. We're just doctors, Selena. If we oppose the Bureau, they'll shut down the entire research center. Or worse, some are saying we should comply. She stood taller, fiery resolve in her eyes. No, we have an obligation to preserve life and do no harm. I won't be complicit in turning a living being into a test subject. She glanced through the observation window, where Leo dozed fitfully. We'll have to find a way to protect him, at least until he's strong enough to defend himself. When Leo woke again, she told him about the looming threat. His response was as immediate as it was predictable. I need to get out of here, he said, trying to swing his legs off the side of the bed. Pain jolted through his abdomen, forcing him to stop. But I can't even stand on my own. Selena caught him before he could fall. You're too weak, and there are guards posted at every exit. You wouldn't make it 5 steps without collapsing. He closed his eyes, frustration evident. Then help me contact my people. The Earth fleet isn't large, but we're not a threat unless attacked first. If your government knows that my friends can come and rescue me, maybe they'll think twice about stashing me in some secret lab. She saw the desperate logic in his plea. I know of a communications room, but it's restricted. If I so much as open a channel off-world, they'll shut it down within seconds. The only chance is to do it covertly, but that might buy us just enough time to warn your fleet. Her mind raced with strategies. She pictured the layout of the facility, the drone surveillance, the passcodes required to access the secure communications. I'll do it, but we have to be prepared for the worst. That evening, she gave the staff an excuse that Leo needed specialized scanning to gauge the extent of his internal injuries. She wheeled him through the corridor, past suspicious guards, and into a part of the facility seldom visited at night. The lights were dimmer here, and the hum of machinery echoed eerily. They reached a locked door. Selena hacked the biometric sensor with her medical override. Inside was a small chamber lined with consoles and a single large screen for real-time transmissions. The technician on duty sat up in alarm when they entered. He opened his mouth to protest, but Selena's authoritative tone cut him off. This is an emergency. We need immediate off-world contact, encrypted. I'll take full responsibility. The technician looked from her to Leo, a flicker of recognition crossing his eyes. He must have heard the rumors. After a tense moment, he nodded and initiated the connection. Selena helped Leo settle into a chair, his face drawn and sweaty from the exertion of just being upright. Static crackled on the display. Then an image formed, a uniformed woman with short-cropped hair. Her brow furrowed at the sight of an HFY doctor hovering over a pale man with bandages. "This is Commander Rena of Earth Fleet." "Who are?" she gasped. "Ace, is that you?" Leo's voice was shaky but determined. "Commander, I'm alive. My ship was shot down. I ended up on a planet called HFY. They saved me, but there's a risk that the local authorities want to keep me here for experiments." Rena's face hardened. "We've been searching for you. Listen, we'll dispatch a patrol ship to your location. Transmit coordinates now." Selena worked quickly at the console, inputting the planet's position. She knew the HFY authorities would detect the communication at any moment. "You must come with caution," she said softly, meeting Rena's gaze through the monitor. "General Corvin's forces will not welcome an off-world incursion. We want to avoid bloodshed." A flicker of empathy crossed Rena's expression. "Understood. We'll handle this diplomatically first. Hayes, hold on. We're on our way." The transmission ended abruptly. Selena glanced at Leo, who exhaled shakily. "Thank you," he managed before the door burst open. Armed HFY guards poured in, followed by Corvin himself. His sharp voice cut through the space. "Seize them." Selena stood in front of Leo protectively. "He's my patient," she insisted, "and by all ethical standards of our medical code, he has the right to request help from his own people." Corvin's lip curled. "You're naive, Doctor. This being is a treasure trove of unknown capabilities. You just compromise planetary security by summoning potential invaders." She wanted to retort that Earth Fleet was hardly an invasion force, but the guards closed in, dragging her and Leo away from the console. In the shuffle, Leo let out a pained cry as the motion tore at his half-healed wounds. Fury blossomed in Selena's chest. She clenched her fists, struggling against the guard's grip. "He's too fragile to be manhandled like this." Corvin's cold eyes flicked over Leo's bandaged form. "Then maybe he'll cooperate more willingly." "Doctor, you will be detained for questioning." He nodded to the guards. "Take them both to holding cells." They were separated in the lower levels of the facility, a labyrinth of sterile corridors rarely seen by the public. Selena found herself in a stark cell with no windows, just a small cot and a door that sealed electronically. She spent what felt like hours pacing, imagining the worst. Would the Earth fleet arrive soon? Would Corvin hurry to move Leo to a hidden laboratory? Or would he wait to see if negotiations could be used to glean more information? She feared time was running out. Her cell door hissed open eventually. 2 guards escorted her to an interrogation room where Corvin waited. He lounged behind a metal table, projecting an air of smug authority. "Dr. Orvio," he began, steepling his fingers, "you've caused quite a stir. The Earth fleet has already signaled that they're en route. Apparently, they think we're mistreating their soldier. We could be on the brink of a diplomatic crisis." Selena forced her spine to stay straight. "If you had let me treat him without interference, none of this would be happening." He shook his head, feigning disappointment. "You're blind to the larger picture. Our civilization has advanced far by studying other species. We do not harm them unnecessarily, but we do what must be done for the greater good. This human's extraordinary ability to heal is unprecedented. Imagine the breakthroughs in regenerative medicine. Imagine the edge it gives us if conflict ever comes. She clenched her jaw. He's not a lab animal. He's a person, and your approach invites war with his people. Corvin shrugged. Let them come. We are not a primitive backwater planet. Averii has alliances, defenses. The question is, which side will you choose, Doctor? I'd hate to see your brilliant mind wasted in a prison cell. Disgust rippled through her. I'd rather die in a cell than assist your unethical experiments. He nodded, unsurprised. Then he rose, signaling the end of the discussion. So be it. Guards, return her to the cell. Prepare to transport the human to a secure site once he's stable enough. Selena was escorted back to confinement, her thoughts racing. She had to find a way to free Leo, or at least stall Corvin until Earth fleet arrived in greater numbers. But how? The guards were vigilant, and she had no allies here except possibly Finer and a handful of doctors. Even it might be too frightened to help. That night, lying awake on the cold cot, she resolved that she would not let fear paralyze her. If she had to betray her entire career to save Leo from becoming a living experiment, she would. The following morning, a commotion in the corridor jolted her upright. Shouts echoed, accompanied by the telltale hum of energy weapons being charged. Her cell door slid open, but instead of guard, she saw Finer's anxious face. He held a stolen security card in one trembling hand. Doctor, hurry, he whispered. I've overridden the system. We can't let them remove the human. Selena rushed out, heart pounding. Where is he? In the next wing, but they plan to relocate him within the hour. Some private transport ship is on its way. Without hesitation, she and Finer navigated the labyrinth. Alarms blared, but many personnel were occupied with some confrontation deeper in the facility. They passed a checkpoint where an armed guard tried to stop them, and Finer managed to stun him with a quick injection of sedative. Selena took a blaster from the unconscious guard, though the weight felt foreign in her hands. They found Leo in a medical holding area, strapped to a bed. His face was drawn, bandages replaced with standard-issue hospital wrappings, and his eyes shone with wary relief when he saw Selena. I was afraid I'd never see you again, he croaked. She quickly set about releasing the restraints. We have to move. The Bureau is about to take you away. Leo sat up with a wince, the blood draining from his face. He was still weak, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand. Selena and Finer each took an arm, supporting him. Together, they hobbled into the corridor. The plan was to reach the hangar bay where smaller medical transports were stored. But as they turned a corner, they nearly ran into Corvin, flanked by heavily armed soldiers. The general's expression twisted in anger. You fools! I should have known you'd attempt something like this. Finer raised his hands in surrender, but Selena positioned herself between Corvin and Leo. He's leaving, Corvin. If you harm him, you'll bring the full wrath of Earth fleet upon Averii. I'll bring them wrath first, Corvin spat. He aimed a sidearm. Move aside, Doctor, or you'll be declared a traitor. I won't hesitate to fire. Her entire body trembled, but she met his gaze without flinching. Then you'll have to shoot me. A tense silence stretched. Footsteps echoed behind Corvin, and more armed personnel arrived. It was hopeless. Finer nudged Selena as if to say they should surrender. But just then, an explosion rocked the hallway. Flames licked at the walls from an adjoining passage, and a shockwave sent debris flying. In the confusion, the lights flickered, and Selena felt strong hands pulling her forward. It took her a moment to realize one of the new arrivals wasn't Averii at all. A human soldier in a sleek black uniform appeared, motioning for them to follow. Lieutenant Teague, Earth Fleet, he shouted over the din. Hayes, can you walk? Leo blinked in disbelief. Teague, you found me. Teague nodded sharply. Commander Rena insisted we come in stealth. We infiltrated the complex. Let's move. Corvin was shouting orders, but the smoke and flames disoriented his guards. Selena, Finer, and Leo hurried after Teague, weaving through partial collapses in the corridor. Sirens shrieked. They passed an open courtyard where an Earth Fleet shuttle hovered overhead, camouflage plates flickering to reveal its sharp, angular hull. A rope was lowered, and Teague motioned for them to climb. Feiner hung back, uncertain. "Doctor, I can't leave. I have family here. I'll face the consequences." Selina squeezed his hand. "Thank you, my friend. Keep working from within if you can." She turned to the rope. Her heart pounded at the height and chaos. Fire leaped along the walls, and Corvin's shouts grew closer. Leo grabbed the rope and managed to haul himself up, grimacing in pain. Selina followed, arms straining, while Teague climbed behind to cover them. Just as Selina reached the open hatch of the shuttle, plasma bolts whizzed past, scorching the shuttle's exterior. Someone below cursed. Then the hatch closed, sealing out the chaos. Inside, Selina gasped for air. The cabin was cramped, filled with Earth Fleet soldiers hurriedly checking controls. Leo collapsed into his seat, blood seeping through his bandages again. She rushed to apply pressure, feeling relief that at least they had a chance to stop the bleeding safely. The shuttle rose, cloaking technology shifting to evade detection. Through a small viewport, Selina glimpsed the structure of her medical facility surrounded by swirling smoke. She felt a pang of sorrow, knowing that this was her home, her life's work, and she was leaving it under the worst circumstances. But the alternative was to watch Leo become a prisoner to Corvin's ambitions. In the distance, the rest of Earth Fleet's contingent hovered in orbit, awaiting the outcome of the infiltration. Diplomacy had failed, so they resorted to direct extraction. Within minutes, the shuttle broke through the atmosphere, jolting as it reconnected with the docking bay of a larger Earth Fleet cruiser. Selina helped Leo onto a stretcher carried by medics. He managed to grin through the pain. "You really stuck your neck out for me." She brushed aside a stray lock of hair. "I told you, I refused to let a patient die or be treated like a test subject. This was the only way." Teague gestured for Selina to follow him through a corridor lined with blinking consoles and vigilant personnel. "Doctor, you should come too. Our commander wants to see you." She nodded, feeling a rush of anxiety. Would Earth Fleet treat her as an accomplice or a savior? Commander Rena waited on the bridge, a stern expression on her face. She looked Selina up and down. "So you're the Averii doctor who saved Hayes. He speaks highly of you. He says you risked everything to let us know he was alive." Selina met her gaze steadily. "He was my patient. I did what was necessary. Your arrival is the only reason he'll survive." Rena's taut posture relaxed slightly. "You have our gratitude. And frankly, we owe you. We'll give you refuge on one of our colonies if you want it. Going back to Averii might be dangerous now that you've defied their defense bureau." For a moment, Selina recalled the bright halls of her hospital, her colleagues, and the sense of purpose she'd had there. Then she remembered Corvin's threat, the ring of soldiers ready to imprison her for practicing her medical oath. She exhaled slowly. "I'll come with you. Maybe, in time, I can return and help rebuild trust between our worlds." Rena nodded. "We'll do our best to reach a diplomatic resolution. But for now, we have to leave Averei's orbit. They've mobilized planetary defenses. If they open fire on us, it could spark a larger conflict." Selina sank into a chair, exhaustion and relief flooding her system. The jump to FDL would happen soon, taking them away from the planet she had known all her life. The corridor behind her bustled with activity as humans carried Leo to the medical bay for proper treatment. She closed her eyes and offered a silent prayer, both for her planet and for herself. She had no idea what the future held, only that she had done the right thing. Days later, Selina stood in the Earth Fleet cruiser's observation deck, staring out at the swirl of lights that marked faster-than-light travel. Her entire world had changed. She had read about interstellar war and alliances, but now she stood in the center of it. The door hissed open, and Leo entered, still bandaged but able to walk on his own. He stopped beside her at the window. "They say you can stay with the fleet until you figure out your next steps," he said quietly. "I wanted to thank you properly. You didn't have to save me, let alone break me out of that place." She shook her head. "I'm a doctor. You needed help." She glanced at him, noticing how the bruises on his face had faded surprisingly quickly. "I'd do it again." A wry smile tugged at his lips. Funny how a near-death experience shows you who really cares about doing the right thing. "I owe you my life." She turned her gaze back to the swirling colors of FTL. "Perhaps your species owes mine a better future. One where we don't capture and dissect each other out of fear." Leo nodded gravely. "We'll do our part. The fleet's not interested in conquest. Maybe we can build bridges. Though I can't promise we won't have to deal with your general again. I get the sense he won't let this go lightly." Selena sighed, imagining Corvin's fury. "All I can do is hope that cooler heads will prevail on HFY once the scandal settles. Until then, I'll help you study the data we collected. Maybe we can find peaceful applications for it, at least for medical advancements." "That's the best possible outcome," Leo said softly. "I'm just glad you're not locked in a cell, and that I'm not strapped to a table." They stood in companionable silence as the cruiser sped onward, leaving the star system of HFY far behind. Selena felt an ache of homesickness, but also an undercurrent of cautious optimism. She had forfeited her position and her safety to protect a stranger from another world. And in doing so, she might have sparked a chain of events that could eventually heal more than just the physical wounds. After all, if one wounded human pilot could demonstrate such miraculous regeneration, perhaps their species could inspire new breakthroughs that would help countless lives throughout the galaxy. When the ship finally dropped out of FTL near an Earth fleet station orbiting a blue-green planet, Selena peered out at the unfamiliar world. Whatever happened next, she was certain her destiny had taken a dramatic turn. But at least she would face it with a clear conscience, having honored her oath to preserve life. And as Leo looked at her with gratitude shining in his eyes, she realized she had gained something invaluable: a friend from another planet, a bond forged in the darkest hours of near death and betrayal, destined to shape the future in ways neither of them could yet foresee.